Hey yo, it's stream time, baby. Hey
Yo, listen, I've got something amazing in the works for you available right now. If you're somebody who's looking to make this year your best year yet at diving into your faith and allowing it to become more applicable in your life. Never known where to start. You've always been confused. It feels overwhelming. Maybe you feel you don't have time. You don't know how to apply the Bible into your life. You have so many questions and thoughts as to what makes sense. How does it make sense? Don't worry. Your boy's got you covered with the Faith Factory. Click the link down in the description below. And in this Google document, you will find a plethora of resources that are at your disposal for you to be able to grow in your faith. I'm talking Bible plans, content creators to follow and subscribe to that better will enrich your faith, resources, links, books, all of that good stuff, even worship playlists, something to jam out to as you progress through your day. I really think this can be the start of something good for you and the lives around you by locking in and making sure that this year is your best year spiritually, therefore making it your best year ever. Don't forget to click the link in the description and go be great.
Are you single but not satisfied with your singleness? Find yourself really wishing and most times hoping for that one relationship to finally come along, maybe feeling sad, lonely, getting on TikTok and Instagram and seeing all the hashtag relationship goals, couple goals, and man, I wish that was me. Or maybe you're not even feeling sad and lonely about your singleness. You're just present in it, but not thinking too much about other things that you might need to attend to in order to prepare for the relationship you still want. Listen, you're not alone. There's so many people who are dealing with the same thing as you are. However, there's so much more to your singleness than just hoping, wishing, and waiting for that one perfect relationship to come along in your life. And unfortunately, how to navigate through our single season, making the most of it, isn't something that's nuanced in today's culture. So many pressures, maybe from family, friends, others trying to get you to marry. You need to be married. Where's your boo by now? You should be taken. And ultimately, pressures like that, along with so many other external factors, is what actually kicks us into gear to forcing relationships that we don't need or aren't ready for, that leads to long heartbreak and unnecessary pain, leading to longer healing journeys. But don't worry, your boy is here to help, helping you navigate through your single season and maximizing it in order to be prepared for the ultimate relationship you're looking for with that one special person in mind. We're talking cultivating the right relationships with others, the right relationship you need to have with yourself, the relationship you need to have in your faith, belief system with God, and ultimately getting aligned with our vision, our direction, and knowing where we want to go in life in order to know who to create this awesome relationship with that will be extremely fruitful to you and others around you. If that's you and something you want, get at your boy at singlescoachgrape@gmail.com and use the word code SINGLE so you can get started on maximizing your single season and getting equipped for the relationship you ultimately want to have with that one special person in mind. There's so much to discover, so much to explore that I know is going to enrich your life. Can't wait to see you over there. What's happening, party people? Man, it's good to be back on another live with y'all. If you're catching the replay, maybe you're going to catch some clips throughout the week from this very live stream. And I greatly appreciate you. I got to get this set up right to some extent. But man, it's good to be back. And so today's conversation, we're going to kind of briefly walk ourselves through this. And then we got quite a few reactions lined up that I have yet to get to that I actually want to spend the stream getting to. And as always, if you have any reactions, any clips you come across that are relationship related, you want some thoughts on, you want some clarity on, you would like some insight on, or you just want to know my thoughts, I guess, I guess if that's what you're looking for, send them my way. I'd love to take a look at it and get some reactions going for sure. So this question that we're raising this evening on this idea of working on me, right? Like, what does it look like to really work on me? So many people say this, right? Especially if you roll up on somebody and maybe the first response you got is like, man, I don't know. Hold on, slow down. You're like, no, what's up? I'm trying to get to know you, trying to do this. Oh, I'm not even interested. I'm working on me. Right? If you've ever heard that as a response when you're trying to holler at somebody, whatever the case is, right? Oh, I'm just working on me. Well, what does that really look like, right? Because as you can tell by the thumbnail, hopefully, that there seems to be two different polar opposite pictures of what it means to work on me, right? Which we can all, in some way, shape, or form, assume that there's some level of potential healing going on. That's one word that's used so frequently today, but it does reign a whole lot of truth in regards to what it looks like. So there's two potential extremes, right? You've got someone who may be going through a lot of rough seasons and situations in their life. Obviously, you still have your day to day, you're taking care of things, but overall, you just know that you're not in a position to uphold and maintain any type of relationship to such a level of intimacy as a romantic one, or just making room for any of that. You've got a lot going on. Okay. Or there's also that picture where this is used as a cover up. This term is used as like a complete cover up, just so maybe I don't have to continue entertaining this conversation. I don't have to entertain and keep entertaining this person. And I don't even have to necessarily go in depth with why I really am not interested in having this conversation. I can just use it, throw it up. Right. And so it's so interesting how we use this to kind of either hide from maybe being able to walk into a legitimate relationship of any kind. We don't really want to deal with that. We're either running from it, or we're even running from our own insecurities, issues, and things that we actually should be working on. And we find ourselves distracted and not really healing. And so this is kind of really what I mean, right? So when other people might be using that term, hey, I'm just working on me. And it's a quick cover up. It's a quick cloud, right? They're really not necessarily doing a lot of healing work, right? Well, what's it required in healing work? Well, I mean, there's so many things. Okay. Obviously you can go to the extremes like therapy. And I don't mean extremes as in they're bad, just the highest form. So you have therapy, right? Maybe they're getting coaching. They're kind of going through some life development courses or things of that sort in order to get themselves together. Okay. Maybe this person is getting just a lot of counseling in certain areas of their life. Okay. They're taking a break from the whole scene as a whole, right? Like doing the work mentally and emotionally. Okay. They're trying to learn themselves again after coming off of a breakup. Okay. They're trying to actually learn how to do life again now that they're single, right? Like there's so many processes that go into that nuanced that are all included. Okay. So that can definitely go into the picture of working on me, right? Or healing in a way. Okay. But this person who uses this as a code, they're not doing that, right? They're not really actually attending to serious matters and issues and problems that they're facing. Instead, they're more than likely doing a lot of what I have listed here as the following. Okay. Um, you know, when they approach this, right, they're not getting when they say I'm not or I'm working on myself, there it comes with this idea of maybe they're traveling, having fun. Okay. If you can kind of again go back to the thumbnail, the person on the right, having fun, right? I'm healing, but I'm really just using that as a cover up. I'm not actually doing the work, trying to learn more about my tendencies, insecurities, trying to learn more of how I can recover from the last breakup and poor relationship and how I can move forward. I'm more so just trying to have fun, maybe even forget about it, right? Because we're not going to necessarily try to lump everybody into this. Maybe you did come out of a relationship that was pretty long and severe, but maybe you didn't find yourself needing that as a healing process to overcome, but yet you still use that phrase, oh, I'm just working on me and doing myself, right? And it's just again a cover up. So you're having fun, you're partying, you're putting yourself in these scenes to potentially be seen, right? To potentially do a lot of activity. Okay. Maybe you're traveling, right? You're going to and fro, right? You got flights, you got dates scheduled. This isn't necessarily work related. Maybe this is just for your own leisure and pleasure. Okay. You're exploring myself. Okay, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, there's a whole lot of definitions, especially in 2023, that can relate to exploring themselves. You can relate this to sexual tendencies and matters. You can relate this to just trying to learn more about themselves. They're kind of diving into new things they've never considered. Maybe it's on spiritual levels, maybe it's on emotional levels, a lot of scary tendencies and far out. Okay. Then you have things like becoming a workaholic. That's definitely an instance of, hey, I'm working on me, when really they're trying to get, maybe they call themselves trying to get to the bag, paper chasing, those kinds of things. But in reality, they're just finding themselves working overtime. working hard, working extremely hard. This is more than a sweat off the brow. They don't ever stop working. They are consumed by work. They're going to work, they bring it home. It's around the clock, day in, day out, right? This formality of working on yourself that again points to a picture of distraction from real, true transformation or transformative healing that is potentially required for the damages that have happened to this person in their life. Think about a gym life. Okay. Nothing wrong. And again, I don't want to necessarily point these out as like going to work is bad if you're needing healing or even going to the gym. Like these things, again, are things that you add into your routine to live a healthy life. However, again, when we take these things to extremes, right? I'm just working on me, but in reality, I'm running away from the stuff that I actually need healing from. And so, gym life, I'm in the gym multiple times a day. Matter of fact, the reason why I'm even able to continue having a conversation about the previous breakup or previous situations actually because I use the gym as a method to run away, right? If I got in, if you are a hooper, you played basketball, you played sports, how many videos and relatable posts did you ever see where people were like, man, this is my saving grace and this field is where I'm able to just get away from things. The basketball court is just where I'm able to let go, be myself, and I'm able to actually have some freedom and get things off my mind, right? Like so many relatable posts in that same direction where you're like, yo, this is my playground where I'm actually able to get the healing that I need. And that's a struggle, right? That's a struggle. And so we run to the gym, we run to the weights, we run to all these things. And hopefully, as you're getting this and I'm sharing more and more of it, you're kind of seeing also a picture of maybe how you continuously go to those things. It's not just a one visit, one time thing. It's something that you consistently find yourself going into, walking in and out of, and you struggle because it doesn't actually heal the wound. It doesn't heal the issue. You're just there though, because it numbs it, right? It kind of quiets it. So gym life, workaholic, all these excuses that we can or at least addictions potentially, all these different things that we can run into that is somewhat of an excuse or of a cover up behind the phrase I'm working on me, right? Because this definitely has leeway and roads to it. On the grind, paper chasing, we kind of mentioned all that too in the workaholic section. But again, all these different avenues that we can run to and we find ourselves moving in as a means to defend the claim that we're working on ourselves. The question is that truly working on you, right? Like, yeah, I'm getting the gains, I'm getting the money, right? I'm working, I'm doing all these other kinds of things. I'm busy, right? I'm busy, but like, is that really what working on me is supposed to really be? Like just finding myself putting hands to anything and everything I can find and see that makes sense and maybe even for somehow, some way, maybe propels me forward to someplace. But am I actually getting forward? Am I actually moving forward? Am I actually progressing? Am I actually doing anything that is leading to transformative outcomes, beneficial results in the long term? Am I actually getting better as a person, growing as a person, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? Am I actually growing in these areas while doing these things? Or are these methods that I'm using to run away from the real pains that are being caused, that have been caused, that I just find myself not ready to deal with and face? And so I think in some of these descriptions, you can kind of catch on and say, oh, dang, okay, so maybe I have been using work as a means to get away from some things. Maybe I have been using the gym as a means to get away from some things. Maybe I have been using social media. I didn't even mention that, but maybe I have been using social media, right? I've been binge watching Netflix and binge watching Hulu, binge watching this and that, and it seems like I'm more willing to escape my reality by trying to live someone else's life. I'm trying to keep up with the Kardashians. I'm trying to keep up with this person and that person. So I'm really locked in on this Netflix series and I got to make sure I get this whole season and a half done today, right? And we do all those things and it's more of a surfaced response of something that's happening internally because really we aren't really ready to deal with the hurt and pain that's taking place in our hearts and where we are. And so it's not just binge watching, binge gaming, all those kinds of things. I mean, there's so many examples that we can point to that help us see that, oh, okay, maybe I'm actually not healing or working on myself like I've been portraying. I've actually been running from my problems, and I've actually been trying to use it as an escape. And so so then if that is typically the approach, if that is typically how people maybe appear when they mention, hey, I'm working on me. Okay, this is possibly more than likely a approach they take, approach others are taking. It's a cover up. I'm not really trying to whether explain it, explain myself, explain the situation, explain what I'm healing from, right? Because sometimes you don't want to talk about it and you don't want to get into that. And of course, depending on who you're speaking to and the capacity that's there, that's completely understandable. However, more often than not, especially in culture, the messages that are really radiating around social media isn't ones that are trying to encourage others to embrace those hard challenges by sitting with yourself, facing your wounds, and actually being willing to do hard work to overcome it. There's a lot of different things that are enticing you to have to go get and to go do. And hey, if you do this in 5 days, and if you can do this, to follow these 5 steps and follow these 5 directions, and we want everything as a quick fix and quick result. And it's no shame and no judgment, because we're all humans and we've compromised and we've all looked for that in certain areas of our lives. But that's typically what's enticed and placed in front of us. This idea that I can go get some kind of remedy really fast because I need it really fast. And so whether that's a 5 step, 5 day, 5 ways, how to do this, how to do that, or maybe it's just, hey, I'm going to go out for the night and I'm going to turn up and I'm just going to try to forget all of my problems through this bottle, through this dance floor, through this bed with somebody else. Like, all these different things. And so I want you to just consider maybe potentially where you are in that space. Like, has that been something you've used? Is that something that you've ever used? And in what ways did you express this in your day-to-day life or in your everyday motioning? And then what did you mean by this when you told somebody you were working on yourself? Were you genuinely in a place where you were actually doing hard work and healing? Where you were actually trying to face a lot of the fears, struggles, and heartaches and wounds that you were going through? Or was this just a phrase you used to kind of throw up a smoke screen so this person wouldn't challenge it? So this person wouldn't challenge you. So this person really wouldn't continue to try to get at you, say something to you, continue conversation with you, or even try to poke around some things. And so it was used as a smokescreen. And on top of that, really what you were showcasing wasn't really that you were working on yourself in the matter of needing healing and recovering from something that hurt you, but rather you were out doing everything else as a means to be distracted from what was really potentially bothering you. And so you weren't really actually progressing and healing. You were being maybe stagnant and busy. And we've all fallen short in this space and capacity. But here's something that I want you to consider biblically that I think can help you understand that it's not to necessarily say that we can't have seasons where we are enjoying ourselves, right? And it's not even to say that in the process of healing that you can't find room to enjoy yourself, because we also don't want to paint this picture that healing is supposed to be all this somber sadness and I'm just supposed to be crying all day every day. Like, nah, that might be more of a stereotypical version of healing we're thinking of. And again, there might be many people who fall into that space due to what took place, and that's completely okay, right? That's a grieving process. We're feeling emotions, we're present in that. And it may not be that you have to be in such an environment in order to be considered healing. We also, however, don't want to use a lot of the things that we've discussed up to this point as a way of escaping things that we actually need to sit with in order to heal. Because again, if we talk about and remember our last stream discussing healing, what does it mean to heal? The first things that one of the things that healing requires is admission, right? So we got to admit that we're hurting, and that typically is what opens up the door for us to be healed. But one of the things that doesn't allow us to even admit that we're healing is a lot of the distractions that we find ourselves surrounded by. So we no longer make time to actually sit with our emotions and analyze a lot of things. Instead, we just find ourselves busy, and it's better to be busy. And yes, life continues, bills have to be paid, we have to keep up with things 1000%. And a lot of times we can find ourselves drowned out by a lot of that because it's just busy and we're always trying to find something else to do to tire ourselves out so we don't give ourselves room to think. But if you ask a lot of people, man, laying their heads down at night with those thoughts running through their minds and just them and their thoughts, it's a tough deal, right? And we understand that in some capacity we can't actually outrun those things. Like we're not actually going to have the capacity to outrun it. We actually at one point or another have to deal with it, right? So let me bring up this passage of scripture that kind of helps us understand more of like the seasons conversation that we're having, and hopefully this could kind of click for you. Because even Solomon discusses a little bit of this, right? Ecclesiastes chapter 3, right? There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, okay? A time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Right. And he continues this for quite a few verses, right? Verse 5, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. There's a time for everything, love and hate, war and peace. There's a time for everything. But verse 4 is really where we're at, because we have to recognize that maybe it's important to recognize the season we're in. It's important to recognize and be aware of the season that we are currently navigating and continuing to find ourselves in those spaces of wanting to grow more and more understanding of it. Okay. So that's pretty massive. And okay, when we talk about a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, this is necessary. So it doesn't seem as if both of them are to be conflated. It doesn't seem to be that both a time to heal and a time to dance, a time to laugh and a time to mourn. It doesn't seem as if both of these have room to be in the same place, to be in the same space. Seems like they might have different seasons, right? And so when you consider a season that you might be in where you're healing, the biggest thing, of course, is honesty and admission that you're in such a season, because that's how you're able to actually progress and move forward. But a part of that is knowing that if I'm actually in a season of healing, then truth is I should actually be participating in transformative work, right? Truth is I shouldn't be finding myself in arenas where I'm caught up in busyness or distracted by so many devices. I actually should be participating in transformative work in order to actually get the healing I need. Like, how many times have we ever been in a cycle where we always saying we're stuck, or we're struggling in this, we're struggling in that, we're hurting in this and we're hurting in that, and yet we haven't even attempted to do any of the work. Don't worry, Christians do it too, because we'll say we're praying on something for years. Like, we'll say we're praying on something for years, and we'll say we're praying on this for years, and we're praying for healing and God do this and God do that, and we will stay in that prayer closet and actually never come out of it genuinely to then apply certain things into our lives in order for us to move forward. So we don't actually heal, we don't actually progress, we just always saying we praying on it. And the question then becomes like, man, well, how long are you going to pray on it until you actually start doing something about it? Right? Until you actually start learning and getting understanding on what the issue is and what potential paradigms are behind, some of the things that you're struggling on. How long are we going to allow ourselves to drift away in distraction? That's actually a really good question, because drifting away in distraction can happen so easily, because you're not because dealing with the biggest issue isn't attractive. So anything that necessarily isn't attracting or appealing to the eye, but we can see is potentially heavy in a lot of ways, we would actually rather just push that to the back of our minds and try to bury that as much as we can, as deep as we can, out of sight, out of mind, right? And we'll play ourselves into thinking that we forgot, or no, I'm over that. Oh man, this is good. I'm over that, right? Oh, I'm way past that now. But like you, but what's your evidence of being way past it? Oh, well, I didn't even think about it until you brought it up. But is that really healing? Right? Have you actually been genuinely working on yourself in that process? Because I would argue that at that point, it's possible that you are more numb than you are healed and at peace. And we can't confuse the two, because being numb to the situation is just simply trying to do so much to the point where you can no longer give your attention to that thing because of how bad it hurt. Whereas at peace, if you're at a place of peace, there's so many levels of acknowledgement, right? There's so many levels of understanding and wisdom that is gained and processed in those positions and in those spaces where you're actually able to say, no, I actually dealt with that wound. I faced it. I faced that fear. I faced that struggle, and I actually dealt with it. And I think there's a lot of times where we can find ourselves delayed because we won't deal with those big issues. And that's a part of healing. And healing, again, man, it's so interesting and such a prevalent message that we preach today. So many people preach and share. I mean, even I myself, right? I share quite a few thoughts on the importance of healing and getting into that space prior to even walking and entertaining into relationships. However, there are many people who share such a message and it gets a lot of attention, and people might perceive it a little bit differently than what it actually is, because healing processes and journeys are messy. Healing journeys are messy because humans are messy. And so it can't be a linear process, right? It's a lot of up and down, hills and mountains that you'll climb, and dips and rises and dips and falls. And you'll have moments like that throughout your healing process. But I think by us admitting that that's the case, instead of admitting that we're over something we really aren't, or that we've surpassed something that we really aren't, or hey, let me just throw up this smoke screen that I'm working on myself, when in reality I'm running from the healing I need by being distracted by so many devices. I think we can actually make progress in the healing that we need. And a lot of times it's about having the awareness of the season we're in, which is why I bring up Ecclesiastes, because Ecclesiastes tells us that there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. Now, here's what's so interesting. He doesn't tell us how long this season and time lasts. So the message isn't to tell you that there's a certain time limit and time cap for your healing, because that would be crazy. There's no timetable for your healing. You need to take as long as you need in order to recover from the things that you're healing through, right? However, what we want to also add to that, not even necessarily however, what we want to add to that is that we want to be honest that we're actually legitimately in a healing process. So if I'm in a healing process, I'm actually doing work that consists of me, reflecting on where I am, gaining awareness of my emotions, gaining understanding of where I'm going, what's happened, being honest about it. We're unpacking feelings, we're unpacking emotions, we're unpacking traumas, we're unpacking paradigms, we're unpacking a lot of this stuff and bringing it all out, uncovering and peeling back so we can get clarity on what's in front of us in order for us to move forward. That looks a whole lot differently compared to, hey, yeah, I'm using the terminology as if I'm actually going through some things, when in reality, I'm actually running away from the healing I need. So I'm running to partying, I'm running to drinking, I'm running to all these different devices that are keeping me distracted and keeping me numb from actually feeling the legitimate pain that hurts really bad. And no, I kind of don't want to go through it. Who does want to go through it? So it's not even in a judgment analysis. We also recognize, however, that the first step to actually getting the healing is admitting that something's hurting. And a lot of times we don't even get to the place of admitting that something's hurting because we're so caught up in everything else that we're trying to get distracted by. And sometimes it's worth us slowing down and catching ourselves in the midst of that and saying, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me slow down. What feeling am I pursuing by what I'm doing? Because oftentimes there's a lot of times as humans, the things that we do is we're chasing after something. I want you to catch that. Like, we're chasing after something. When it comes to our emotions and what we put our hands to, we're chasing after something, some kind of emotion, some kind of feeling. And we really, really want that. We really, really want that. The question becomes that you have to ask yourself is, what feeling am I pursuing? What am I doing this for? How does how does this activity or what I've got my hands to make me feel? What's the end game of me doing this? Right? So if I'm going to the club, I'm partying, if I'm going to the gym and I'm just staying in the gym, I'm using the gym as a method to get over a breakup, a heartbreak, a separation, something didn't go my way, I need to release some anger. I think it's healthy to ask yourself what feeling, what emotion am I looking to achieve by doing this? And a lot of times you might probably think of things like, man, shoot, I'm just trying to get this off my mind. I'm trying to get some peace. I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to get that. And in a finite world, in a very limited world, it would make sense. But because we are playing this game of life from an infinite perspective, knowing that things are greater than the surface, greater than how they look outwardly, and have deeper rooted connections that require deeper work in order to overcome. I know that even though I go to the gym today, I'm going to have to come back to the gym tomorrow, and I'm going to have to come back to the gym next week, next month, next year, because this has become my crutch for dealing with my pain. And then we kind of come to those we kind of come to those places where we're like, well, shoot, it's better than fill in the blank. Oh, dealing with my anger is better than putting my hands on Shawty. It's better than putting my hands on somebody. And to that extent, you might be right. I don't think you would be far off by suggesting such. However, if we really look at the core of it, we see that neither solution actually is that much beneficial. Like taking our anger and taking our emotions that we haven't unpacked and we're just allowing to simmer and bundle up. Maybe it's not in that arena of fighting somebody physically, but it is placed in the arena of going to the gym, and it is placed in the arena of what? Fill in the blank, whatever it is that you might be struggling with. Maybe it's your emotions and unpacked dealings that led you to corn, right? And led you to the physical intimacy, watching others do it or partaking of it in your own, right? Like that's the deep rooted things, right? And so we have to come to a place where we're willing to deal with it. And everybody that has these struggles, I'm not saying that that's exactly where you go to the extreme of the extremes. It's possible, however, that you might find yourself in loops of distraction and addiction to certain things, though. It may not be the worst of the worst, but it could be something that you may not have given much thought to because it's not in the same level of sin as maybe somebody else's activity and doing. But we realize, like, man, even through watching all these seasons on Netflix and eating a whole lot, eating my feelings away and binge gaming and all those kinds of things, I haven't really been hearing God. And I haven't really been hearing God and anything he's trying to get to me. Actually, I think more than likely I've kind of drowned out God's voice because of all these things I've been partaking in. And I think it takes it takes really great self-reflection, self-awareness to be able to actually admit that that's happening and to actually notice that that's happening in the midst of it taking place. And so when it comes to this question of healing and journeying through healing and hey, what does it look like? Genuinely working on yourself has more to do with the internal work and transformative things that are taking place in your life as a result of the healing journey you're going through. And it has less to do with what you're putting your hands to, right? Activity wise, outwardly, that you're finding yourself moving in. So it has more to do with the internal work, less to do with the outward showing of what you're doing. Right. So again, with the examples above and that we've used earlier, this picture of working on me isn't proven genuinely and authentically, realistically, legitimately through the gains I'm getting in the gym or the extra money I'm making because I'm working a lot more. Or it's not proven through hey, like I'm over it and I'm good. Hey, that was yesterday. I left it in the past, right? We kind of tell ourselves all these stories to make ourselves feel better about the situation, right? It's this idea of working on me can't be conflated, confused, or even used as a screen in order to engage in devices that are distracting. So if you're legitimately working on you, evidence of such is greater realizations about the situation that you may be healing through, greater realizations about yourself in the process. There are areas of growth and transformation. And depending on what you're healing through, there can be a lot of struggle in that too. Right. Like personally, you can reflect back on your life and reflect back on that season or the season you might be currently in and said, man, no, I'm actually working on me. I'm actually working on me because I'm able to take accountability for some of the things I'm doing. I'm feeling emotions. I'm grieving through this process. I'm actually unpacking a lot of the things that I have been hurt by as a result of why I'm even on this healing journey in the first place. So I'm unpacking a lot of things. I'm doing a lot of the internal work, and I'm not allowing myself to go to the extremes of doing all these activities around me to whatever range to get distracted from it. So I'm actually welcoming the challenge, embracing the hurt and pain, and willingly looking to face my wounds. That is what it actually looks like to work on yourself, not by what cultural definitions say. And again, I also want to point this out too. If you're working on yourself too, that doesn't always mean that you are hurt and in a healing journey, right? Because you could also be working on yourself by just being prepared for where you're going. I feel like I need to be in a better position in life, right? Trying to get stable, trying to find stability financially, wherever, right? Yeah, I got to make sure that I'm in order before I start trying to consider bringing other people in my life to such a degree. I think that's fair. So don't hear me say that somebody who is working on themselves is always has to be in a healing process. I think there's room enough for the process or for this idea of working on yourself to also include others who are just simply trying to build for a better future, find stability. You're trying to find some ground. But even then, that too, right? Um, there's a season and a time for everything under the sun. So if you're in that position as well, there's a time to sow, there's a time to reap, there's a time to build, there's a time to tear down. So we're not always finding ourselves on this grind and do, and put my hands to, engaging in all this activity. There's a season in the time where I'm working hard. There's a season in time where I'm doing a lot. There's a season in time where I'm working heavily, and there's a season in time where I'm not. And so it's all about finding the proper balance in those spaces. And I think once you are able to get to a place where you're finding proper balance, I think a lot of great benefits come your way. Here's another text too, in regards to seasons that I was thinking of that I spent so much time on Ecclesiastes. I didn't even get to this text because specifically when it comes to healing, healing from hurt wounds, healing from the past, healing from other things. I've referred to Isaiah 40 a lot on this channel recently in discussing Isaiah 40 and future videos that will be coming up on this channel. But this is such a major text for me. Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, written by the prophet Isaiah. The first half is covering the judgment and the destruction that's coming Israel's way. But the second half deals with a lot of the restoration that also will come at the hand of God, who leads them into this judgment due to their disobedience to God and breaking the covenant that he made with them. There's a level of restoration that follows up, and this is so beautiful, y'all, because in this restoration and healing, do you want to know what a part of working on yourself is facing hard truths. This chapter reveals this to us. I want you to see the first hard truth that comes up in this chapter. After recognizing that God is looking to comfort his people, speak tenderly to his people, look at what this says. Verse 6, a voice says, cry out. And I said, what shall I cry? All people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever. And so even though this might, but what the heck does this mean? We're talking about grass, we're talking about flowers, what in the world? And so what he's essentially aiming for in this text is getting the people who he's speaking to, okay, the audience being Israel and Judah, who have, due to their own poor decisions and many poor decisions and rebellious actions against God, that they've led themselves to this dry place, and they've led themselves to this space of needing healing and restoration from God. But all people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall because the breath of the Lord blows on them. So he's comparing people to grass. He's comparing these people to being as weak as this grass, so weak that blowing on it causes them to wither. So this is an admission that needs to take place on the behalf of the people to admit that we are weak. We don't have it like we thought we did. So this is a truth. and a hard truth that needs to be acknowledged, that I am actually not as strong and big and tough as I thought I was. And then I actually need to admit that not only am I not capable of handling this all on my own, but that I am just simply too weak to handle this on my own. But God, you are greater, you are stronger, right? So this is a hard truth, recognizing that I don't have the strength to hold it all on my own. So if you are going through a healing journey and you are working on yourself, please know that a part of that genuinely in this genuine in-depth healing journey is again admitting that I don't have it all together, admitting that I am in need of help and that I'm hurting. And I got to be willing to accept hard truths in this same journey. And of course, the biggest one is also acknowledging God, turning to God, giving our ear to God, being reminded of who God is. One of the beautiful things about going through healing journeys, no matter how great they are, and there are many significant journeys out there, people who are on these huge journeys, but one of the best things about healing is being able to reflect on the remembrance of who God is. That is really where a lot of our opportunity to see the best about the situation comes into play, because now I'm zooming out of what all I've zoomed in on that has caused a lot of lack, that has caused a lot of pain, that has caused a lot of suffering, that has caused a lot of me to beat up on myself, feel guilty and shameful, that has caused me to not necessarily focus on this problem from the right perspective. So guess what? When I remember who God is, I'm able to zoom out on that and realize that, man, my problem isn't as big as I think it is. It's actually just because I've leaned all into it, right? I've leaned all into the problem. That's so to the point where all the problem is all I see. And God appears small, but he's not small. And when I actually come to know and remember, oh my God, God is who he says he is. God is amazing. God weighed the mountains on scales and hills on balances. Like God created the heavens and the earth. And let's just go through Isaiah 40 because he literally brings us through this. Right? Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or with the breath of his hand marked off the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket, or weighed the mountains on scales and the hills in a balance? Now hold on. He held the dust on the of the earth in a basket? In a basket. How many specks of dust cover the earth? Too many to count. He weighed the mountains on scales and the hills in a balance. Do y'all know how massive hills and mountains are? Jesus. Who can fathom the spirit of the Lord or instruct the Lord as his counselor? So wait, God is greater than my environment. God is greater than the biggest things that I can actually see with my own eyes. And God is is Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. So no one ever counseled God. God isn't coming to anybody for wisdom because he has all wisdom, all power, all authority. So wait, I'm remembering who God is now, right? I'm remembering and reflecting on who God is. And this is one of those ways that we can lean into hearing the voice of God in the midst of that healing journey, is being able to find space and rhythm in that journey to listen in and keen into what God is, to what God's saying and to who God is. Remembrance is oftentimes a lot of what will help us through such challenging times. Remembering the cross, remembering Jesus, remembering all that he's done for us, remembering who God is, remembering that even though this hurts right now, this will not always be painful. This will not always be my present moment. And one day I'm going to be able to look back on this from the other side. And I'm going to get there. Right. And no matter how long it takes, as Isaiah 40 ultimately sums up with the final verses of it, no matter how long it takes, whether we fly there, we run there, we walk there, we're always moving, and we're moving at the pace and patience that God has set with us. And I think that's a good encouragement for you and the others around you, is knowing that this healing, again, as we mentioned earlier, doesn't have a timetable. And a part of working on myself is accepting hard truths, uncovering and unpeeling, peeling back a lot of things that have really, really bothered me and have really, really been a struggle in my life. But also, more than anything, giving my ear to God and remembering who he is, and no longer willing to zoom in on my issue, but willing to zoom out and allow God to have the bigger perspective, allow my problem to rest at his feet, knowing that he's God and God alone. Whom did the Lord consult to enlighten him, and who taught him the right way? Who was it that taught him knowledge or showed him the path of understanding? Surely the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They are regarded as dust on the scales. Now, this is interesting because in this context, Assyria, Babylon, those are big nations that are surrounding Israel. So Israel's literally the weakest nation among them all. And the only reason they have their victories up to this point is because of God, whom they've forgotten along the way. And so God is also putting into perspective that even those enemies and nations around them who seem so big and bad aren't anything compared to God. Surely the nations are like a drop in the bucket. They are regarded as dust on the scales. He weighs the islands as though they were fine dust. Lebanon is not sufficient for altar fires, nor its animals enough for burnt offerings. Before him, all the nations are as nothing. There it is. Before him, all the nations are as nothing. I don't care what president, I don't care what king, I don't care who it is. They can't compare to God. They are regarded by him as worthless and less than nothing. With whom then will you compare God? To what image will you liken him? So this also kind of goes back to the devices that we might find ourselves running to, right? Like we ran to a lot of devices to help us through a lot of the things that we're struggling with and we're in pain about. But God's like, no, that is always going to be a cheap version of what I can do for you. And the proof is that you have to keep coming back to the very device you're going to that numbed you the last time, didn't heal you, didn't help you overcome it. It just numbed you. So we don't want to get to a place where we're massaging wounds. We want to get to a place where they're actually healed. And how they actually are healed is by admitting we're hurt and sitting with the healer, because nothing compares to God in the healing capacity that he has. And this should encourage us to really be willing to remain in that place, to know that I'm not being rushed, and to know that I don't have to have it all figured out in this healing process, and to know that I'm allowed to be human in this healing process, and to admit that it hurts, and to admit that it's going to be painful, and to know that it's going to suck in, and to admit that I don't have to get to a certain place in order for me to feel like I've done everything there is to do and there's nothing left to do. Remember, we're measuring healing by milestones, right? We're measuring healing by milestones. We're not trying to have it all together. We're trying to measure it by milestones. So we want to keep that in mind. As for an idol, a metal worker casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold and fashions silver chains for it. A person too poor to present such an offering selects wood that will not rot. And so he then goes into the descriptions of the idols that they're worshiping. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. Y'all, if you guys can get this imagery, God is simply saying that he's bigger than all this creation. So of course he's going to be bigger than any problem his creation has. He's the creator of all things. So we got to remember who God is, man. That's the key. Your heartbreak, remember who God is. Your struggles, remember who God is. The corners that you feel trapped in, remember who God is. The struggles of life you're enduring, remember who God is. He and focusing on him is how we're going to navigate through this thing. To whom will you compare, or who is my equal? Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. That's what we ought to do when we're working on ourselves and we're in a journey of healing. Lift up our eyes and look to the heavens. So where are you looking? That's a good question. Where are you looking in your process of healing? Are you looking up to the heavens and acknowledging God, or are you just trying to find so many other devices? Or where are your eyes? Where are your feet pointed to? Where's your attention? Where's your attention at in your healing journey? It's a great question. Where's your healing attention? Where are you paying attention? Where is your attention being given? What information are you feeding yourself? What are you consuming in this healing journey? Could it be that a lot of what you're consuming is playing a role in how you're thinking about navigating through this process? Maybe even the stories you're telling yourself, and think about it for good and for bad, because I think if you're focused on the right things, you're focused on the things above, you're focused on abundance, I think those tell amazing stories even in the midst of struggles you're facing. I had to focus on abundance when I wrecked my car. It was not fun. I had to focus on abundance because I knew that focusing on lack wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I had to focus on abundance. I had to continuously wake up every day and wake up with an attitude of gratitude for what I already had. Because if I only locked in on what I was without, that always presented a downward spiral. And well, since I already lost this section of my day, I should just throw away my whole day. Now I should just throw away my whole week. Turns into a month, turns into a year before you know it. But because we understand that there's power in where we put our focus, I want to focus on the right things, heavenly things, the things above. I want to focus on the things of God. I want to focus on what I already have and what I have to work with to be able to multiply. Man, I'm telling y'all, Like Isaiah 40 blessed my life tremendously reading through it. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name because of his great power and mighty strength, but none of them is missing. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, my cause is disregarded by my God? Do you not know? Have you not heard? Uh-oh. I want you to catch this. How many of you can possibly relate to this? You've complained so much. You've complained to God. You've complained about your situation, and yet you continuously say, "I can't hear God. I can't hear him. I can't hear him." Well, I think I don't even want to cook you, but it's possible that you can't hear him because you've been on you get to your third shot by the time God might want to say something. You can't hear him because you got all the music blasting in your ear, reminding you of how tough that relationship was or how much you may miss that person. You're going through some serious stuff. And again, I'm not saying that as if that's not something that is no room for. I think we all deal with our struggles and issues differently. And we also have to be willing to admit when something isn't as beneficial as maybe we want it to be. We might need to switch gears, change course. So please know that God is near. And please know that God actually does desire to deal with your heart tenderly and speak to you. He's speaking in this space, but it's very still. And we have to get close to him and be intimate with him in order to hear him. So we have to create room for that. In order for what's on our heart to actually be dealt with, we have to be willing to get into that space and yield to God on a routine, on a daily basis in consistency. Some days I'm pouring my heart out, and some days I'm just intently listening for God. I'm writing out my prayer journals. I'm in a space of worship. I'm getting in community and leaning on others around me who are in Christ that I can talk to and talk these struggles through with. Powerful stuff. But one thing I don't think we can get away with is actually saying that God is not near, God isn't speaking, God doesn't care. Because according to this passage right here, God has been present the whole time. What we failed to do is lean into where he's at. We've leaned away. We've walked away. We've gotten involved in everything else but the right things. And it's understandable because I would rather feel anything else than what I'm feeling right now. But God's saying, no matter what you're trying to go to here in this text, what I would share with you is what he's getting over to his people, which maybe you can relate to this same dry place. I know that that's the tendency you want to do because it seems as if that's all that's left, or it seems as if that's what's best. But in reality, it falls short of God, so it can't be the best. And it's only going to lead you to more dryness and a delayed healing process. So in this healing season, be willing to listen to hard truths and accept what God is trying to get over to you, because he is speaking and he is present. And we have to be close to him to hear him. So this is what he reminds us of when he comes out of this, right? Because the God's ways are not hidden. God's word is not hidden. Who he is not hidden. No, none of that's hidden. We just haven't been listening, right? So what does he say here? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends, the creator of the ends of the earth. Okay, so we're reminded of who God is. He's everlasting and the creator. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He has all wisdom that surpasses our own. He will not grow tired or weary. God isn't sleeping on us. God isn't bailing on us. He gives strength to the weary, so he strengthens. He increases the power of the weak. Do you feel weak? He can increase your strength. This is where you want to be in his presence. Even the youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. Okay? So has nothing to do with age. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. This entire chapter, right? So watch this. But those who hope in the Lord, some versions read, but they who wait on the Lord. So in this process of healing, I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God, and waiting can get tiring, but I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God to make a change and continue to work on my heart and prepare me for where I'm going. But I'm waiting. I'm being patient. I'm waiting and walking with God. I don't want to run ahead of God. I want to walk with God. Because if I run ahead of God, then I'm going to find myself right back here, right? Because I thought I was ready for it and I wasn't. and I got into it prematurely, and I wasn't really leaning into what God was telling me. All I'm telling y'all, listen, all I'm telling y'all, literally journeying through the entire chapter or most of the chapter of Isaiah 40, God is near, God is present, and it is up to us to lean in on him. And that is really where I believe working on yourself is actually coming to life. Yes, we can talk about the material things. Yes, we can talk about, hey, I'm working on myself and getting in the gym and getting the routine and getting consistency, and I'm getting a schedule, and I'm trying to do all these different things that, again, are amazing. And we should want to do those things. We should want to remain on disciplines and principles. We should want to apply those things. That's how we want to grow. Absolutely. And I don't think you're ever actually truly working on yourself until you dig deeper and you do the deep work with God, because he's where you need to be in order to unpack a lot of things that could be potentially needing more attention, and you need to give more attention to, spend more time with, sit with, wrestle with, deal with, cry about, cry with, be angry about, allow your emotions to spill out in a private space prayer. It was in a private space in prayer, even and with others you can trust. But nonetheless, doing that work, that's what doing the work looks like. Tapping into that, not just the physical gains, but we're dealing with the emotional and spiritual side of things. And I don't think that you're actually making progress by looking at the physical gains and the financial wealth or things that you're claiming to have in such a space. So if we're going to progress, let's get into the presence of God. Let's lean into what God has to say. Allow ourselves to embrace that hurt and challenge, knowing that through facing this is hope and grace. Knowing that this is a measurement of mercy that's allowing us to experience God in a way that maybe we haven't before. And we are able to depend on his grace to see us through. And that there's hope through it all. And that we're going to be able to get on the other side and be appreciative of the healing journey we went on, because if it wasn't for us facing those things and doing it with God instead of doing it with all the other devices we've been running to, we're just appreciative, you know? So think on those things. Think on those things as we are being mindful of some of the catchphrases and things that we hear when people are saying certain stuff, right? Some people use this very working on myself as a method of screen to protect themselves from having to go into in-depth conversation with others about maybe what they're really dealing with, what they're really wrestling with, or maybe they just use it as a term of endearment to indulge in distractions. Regardless, my point of this beginning stream and video is to share with you that working on yourself is a lot deeper, surpasses the surface, and deals a lot with growing in the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of things to progress forward to where God wants you to be. And sometimes a lot of that deals with unpacking a lot of things that have been ingrained, programmed, and buried in you that we want to bring the light to in order to grow and be transformed for the better, where we're headed, and even for the future relationships we desire to connect with others. And it consists of us hearing hard truths, admitting we're hurt, giving our ear to the right person in the right place, to the right power, zooming out of all the struggles that we have been zooming in on, and putting our struggles in the right perspectives, which is always at the feet of Jesus, remembering who he is. Because when we put that into the right perspective, that's where we're able to start being grateful, start showing gratitude, and we're actually able to start gaining peace in these healing journeys, because we are actually putting our problems in the right perspective, and that's at the feet of Jesus. And that's how we're actually able to move forward, by doing that right there, and not moving ahead of God, but walking with him. So that's that. I hope you guys got something out of that. We're going to actually quickly transition. We're going to react to a couple TikToks. I had maybe about 5 of them, but I'm already surpassing an hour. I was not expecting to be on that for an hour. So we've got a couple TikToks we want to react to. And then I think we're going to close this stream. So let's run this real quick and be right back. Are you single but not satisfied with your singleness? Find yourself really, really wishing and most times hoping for that one relationship to finally come along, maybe feeling sad, lonely, getting on TikTok and Instagram and seeing all the hashtag relationship goals, couple goals, and man, I wish that was me. Or maybe you're not even feeling sad and lonely about your singleness. You're just present in it, but not thinking too much about other things that you might need to attend to in order to prepare for the relationship you still want. Listen, you're not alone. There's so many people who are dealing with the same thing as you are. However, there's so much more to your singleness than just hoping, wishing, and waiting for that one perfect relationship to come along in your life. And unfortunately, how to navigate through our single season, making the most of it, isn't something that's nuanced in today's culture. So many pressures, maybe from family, friends, others trying to get you to marry. You need to be married. Where's your boo by now? You should be taken. And ultimately, pressures like that, along with so many other external factors, is what actually kicks us into gear to forcing relationships that we don't need or aren't ready for, that leads to long heartbreak and unnecessary pain, leading to longer healing journeys. But don't worry, your boy is here to help, helping you navigate through your single season and maximizing it in order to be prepared for the ultimate relationship you're looking for with that one special person in mind. We're talking cultivating the right relationships with others, the right relationship you need to have with yourself, the relationship you need to have in your faith, belief system with God, and ultimately getting aligned with our vision, our direction, and knowing where we want to go in life in order to know who to create this awesome relationship with that will be extremely fruitful to you and others around you. If that's you and something you want, get at your boy at singlescoachgrape@gmail.com and use the word code SINGLE so you can get started on maximizing your single season and getting equipped for the relationship you ultimately want to have with that one special person in mind. There's so much to discover, so much to explore that I know is going to enrich your life. Can't wait to see you over there. What's going on, party people? Listen, we just hit a milestone on this channel. Can you believe it? 2,000 subscribers, at least at the time of me recording this, and hopefully it's growing. And I appreciate you oh so much for being a part of this journey and growing with your boy as we continue to elevate, to grow, and more importantly, to spread the good news in the formality of building healthy, happy, whole, and biblical relationships. Y'all tune in for this stream. It's going to be a good one. All right, here we go. Got a couple here. So let's see what we can jump here. So this is Jerry Flowers. I love this cat, by the way. I really, really enjoy his content, especially as he's diving into a lot of things recently. I just love it. And this is on the idea of why relationships die and questioning whether or not the problem was you. And this is typically a hard conversation to have, right? Because we kind of don't naturally want to admit that we're the problem, especially if it was such a degree of hurt and pain. But I think if we really want to be healed people who see things differently, who have the capacity to create healing relationships, healed relationships, whole relationships, biblical relationships, these are things that we have to address. And this is a lot of what we share over here, right? Dealing with some hard things and really wanting to dive into those things for the greater good of the relationships we want to create, knowing that we want to continue to cultivate, create, relationship with God, relationship with ourselves and relationships with others in a healthy way. And I think this is one. So let's check this out. What you got for us, Jerry?
Relationships never die from natural causes. It was either a homicide or something being purified. Relational homicide. I killed this, they killed this, or we killed this together. Purified. God is purging that from your life because he has something greater in store for you. Let's consider 6 ways that you could identify that it might be you. Number 1, you produce junkyards versus skyscrapers. It's possible that the lack of wholeness in me is creating brokenness in them. A whole glass can quench your thirst, but that same glass, if broken, can cut you. Stop bragging that you'll never hit a woman. We do it all the time with our words. And it's the same for sisters. You caught so many bodies with your mouth, you could be an undertaker.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord. That was beautiful. right? Your words mean so much. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, just as much as you can change somebody's entire day with an encouraging message, you can literally destroy somebody's entire day with a disencouraging or discouragement, with really really tough words, that have a way of roaming around and living in your mind rent free. And so one of the things that I'm always loving to do, man, show appreciation and love and encouragement to those when they cross your mind. Like be willing to be a generous person, to be a gift to people in that way, with not just your deeds but your words. Scripture says that we want to be right, we want to do right in word and deed. We want to honor God in word and deed, right? And that's even with others that we're talking to and in relationship with. I want to honor you with my words, not just my actions, right? I want to honor you with my words too. So just as much as we say, "Hey, show me, don't say it to me. Show me, don't tell me." Now, I also want you to navigate in both in a way where you're being honorable with your words, and because you're honorable with your words, I can see that you're honorable with your actions because they both correlate. You say what you mean what you say. If you're going to do it, you did it. If you're going to be there, you're there, right? If you're that type of level. And in this case, as he's speaking about it, man, you just you can you the there's power of life and death at the tongue. The worst nursery rhyme that ever exists is sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never help. Words will never hurt me. That is a lie. That is awful. That is terrible. Please stop singing it, because words have the capacity to hurt. And you done caught a whole lot of bodies. So I appreciate that, Jerry.
Number two, you're the teacher, never the student. I promise you something is wrong if you're never wrong.
I heard that. I remember, my mentor said one time, if you are the loudest in the room, you might need to change rooms. So you always want to be a student in any kind of capacity. You want to live life as a student and admit when you're wrong. Some of the most you can't really create relationships with people who can't admit that they're wrong, and or find a way to shift blame on you because they spoke out of turn or couldn't admit to their own faults.
Three, you have to have control. It low key feels like bondage to be with you. It's an interrogation process every single time I move. People who possess this attribute have a pattern of twisting their insecurities and projecting them on you as your flaws. Four, you're just petty. Petty is when you make calculated comments that are saturated in holding a record of wrong against somebody when they're voicing their concern to you. Five,
Hey,
you're
I
not
like that.
faithful.
Faithful. We're gonna touch on that too. I want to bring to us. No, I'll bring it at the end. I was gonna jump in and bring a scripture. Let me wrap this up. So he said, pettiness. Okay. Now faithful.
Faithfulness is the choice to remain even after the desire to remain has left. And
Woo.
lastly, you just lie. The painful thing about a lie is one lie makes you question all truths. It's not always them.
Ooh,
Maybe, just maybe, it could be me.
that is real. I want to bring y'all to a text after this, but that is so real. That is so real. It is not always them. We always kind of start out a new year. We're right around the corner around this time. Like we always start out a new year, new me. I'm leaving all that in back of the mind in 2023. Like we always do all that kind of stuff. And we always find a way to get the lawnmower and make a decision to cut people out of our lives who we felt weren't fruitful or beneficial to our lives. But is it possible that maybe you contributed to the environment that you created that you're now looking to cut out and remove from your life? It is possible that it isn't them. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. And I love the thought and encouragement that even my own mentor gave me at one point. He said, "Yo, if multiple people who don't know each other say the same thing about you, that's something to consider, good or bad. So you want to consider it in the sense that maybe there's some truth to this. I might need to consider it." But I want to point you to a scripture when he said that, record of wrongs. Y'all know where I'm going. I hope y'all know where I'm going. I hope y'all do. 1 Corinthians Come on with me. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. This is love right here. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. So is it possible that like this whole time you thought you were moving with love and you felt betrayed? Is it possible that you were actually not moving in love? And every petty comment, you just couldn't let things go? Maybe you fit with that description. Here's the beautiful thing about it. If you find yourself in those descriptions too, right? Because as we see, love, it keeps no record of wrongs. It doesn't mean that I forget what somebody did to me, right? No, I look to remember that so it doesn't happen again. However, I am not looking to guilt trip you, shame you, or continue bringing something up that I've already said I've forgiven you for, and I've already said I'm moving on from, right? Because then that's not a healthy relationship that we're creating. If I'm just continuously dabbling this over your head so I can get my way, that's manipulation. That's not an actual relationship. So here's the beautiful thing about this. If you find yourself relating to any of those that he mentioned, you lie, you're unfaithful, petty, controlling, okay, all these different types. I forgot the first two already, but remember these six traits that it could be you. Okay, it could be you. Here's the beautiful thing: you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay there. The beautiful thing is that now that this is called out, we have an opportunity to go in the other way. We have an opportunity to repent. So we acknowledge our faults, and now we are looking to turn in an opposite direction. And of course, turning closer to Christ. And when we turn closer to Christ, that's when we start acknowledging a lot of these things, seeing it more clearly, getting to know ourselves in the best way by getting closer to the one who knows us best, who made us, who formed us. And now we're actually able to apply new software to the right paradigms that we're going to pick up on by being connected to Christ. That's going to help us create healthy, happier, whole biblical relationships with others in the future. So if that's you, all hope is not lost. There's an opportunity to change directions. There's an opportunity to turn and now make the most out of this opportunity of healing in front of you. So that way, the relationships you create from this point forward are those that are beneficial, are those that are fruitful, are those that are transformative. And now you are no longer the sole problem behind the destruction of a relationship. He said it's either by homicide. I'm forgetting what he said. It's either homicide. I got to remember. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Had to go back. So it's either a homicide or something purified. Either you killed it, I killed it, we killed it together, or maybe this is a relationship that we're being separated from, God making room for someone else that is going to make sense for where we're going, and it's purifying. Okay, I'm separating from something that God no longer sees needing or wanting in my life. And we trust God with our relationships. That's a huge deal too. So consider that. Consider that. Consider that we want to be willing to trust God with our relationships. And a part of trusting God with our relationships is also being willing to acknowledge when we are the problem. I've said this before, and I'll leave it here as we transition to the next one. One of the ways that I'm learning we experience God is when we're able to turn a mirror on ourselves. Oftentimes, again, we might find ourselves in that type that he mentioned, where you're controlling and you take your insecurities and you twist them and project them onto someone else. And oftentimes, we can easily find ourselves in those spaces where we're projecting something we're feeling or something that we're wrestling with onto someone else. And in reality, God actually might be tugging on our heart, getting at our heart about something. And we're making it about the person that we're thinking about. And it doesn't even have to be in a way that we're twisting insecurities, as you mentioned, although that is true. We can do this too when we're hearing sermons and when we're hearing messages, and we think of something a pastor might have said that was so good, and we thinking, hey man, this is fitting for this person, and maybe we want this person to know it. So maybe it's more of a selfish gain and selfish desire. I want God to really deal with this person's heart. And I really want God to deal with this person because this, that, and the third. And we're pointing out all these things about what potentially we want to change about this person for our selfish benefit. And maybe it's possible that God is wanting to get at you, but we're too busy trying to focus and save other people where they're at. And so one of the ways that we can experience God at great levels is by turning a mirror on ourselves and being willing to admit when we ourselves aren't actually doing and what we're supposed to be doing, being who we are called to be. And there's grace that he meets us with there. And it's that mercy that we experience when he gives us an opportunity to humble ourselves and see ourselves for where we really are. He ushers us through that process on the other side with the instrument of grace. And so now we're able to actually acknowledge that this is where we're at, and we're able to receive it because he gives it to us in such a gentle way. And now we're more willing to make a difference because of the grace we encountered through the mercy we were facing that allowed us to see our own faults, wrongdoings, and where we went wrong, to now make the decision to now do right. And that's where it ultimately comes. So I love that. I love that. I got one more in me. One more reaction in me. I'm not too sure which one I want to do. I like his content too. Yeah, let's check out Albanir Eugene, I believe. If you guys haven't heard this guy, man, this dude, this brother, I found him doing relationship content, and this brother here is something special. So it seems like this is a message on broken trust. So let's check this out.
What I've learned is when there's a breach, when trust has been broken, what I've learned, this goes for men and women. You have to understand it takes such a long time to build trust. In one moment to destroy it all. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to earn the trust back. Hear me. I don't mean, someone constantly testing you and it almost feels like a never-ending journey of earning the trust. I'm not saying that. It's what I've learned. Someone can decide to forgive you, say, you know what, I'm going to give you another chance. Someone can decide to come back together, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be triggered no more. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be affected when they see signs, or they may have a night where they can't stop thinking about the breach. They can't stop thinking about the betrayal. And you may have to deal with emotions. You may have to deal with anger. You may have to deal with frustration. You may have to deal with scenarios where you may say, bro, that happened last year. Come on, that happened mad long ago. I thought we was done with that. What I've learned is you got to be open to all of that. You got to understand when there was a breach, and even if someone takes you back, or even if someone decides to still be friends, still be in that romantic relationship, still be in that marriage, see, you have to be, if you value that relationship and you're saying you acknowledge the mistake you made, you acknowledge the bad decision you made, you have confessed or admitted to the wrong in the relationship. When there was a breach, you have to be open to being patient, to being understanding, and saying, you know what, I know you're triggered, and I'm sorry again for the breach. And I understand how the breach has deeply affected our relationship. Watch this. You can ask this beautiful question and code it with this beautiful statement. If there's anything that I can do that can restore some level of security or stability to our relationship after I broke your trust, please let me know. And I am willing, here's the statement, and I'm willing to do whatever is needed. That's how much I value this relationship. Ask that person, is there anything I can do that can start the journey of restoration, and let them know I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Man, see, I don't even have nothing to say because that was beautiful. That was beautiful. I've often been met with people who are like, yo, I got trust issues, and trust issues is a huge deal when it comes to relationships. Of course, you want to build trust and be able to trust somebody is going to remain close to you, honor you, right? Honor the relationship, respect the boundaries in the relationships that you create. And oftentimes a lot of the people that we've encountered in our past have a way of breaking that trust through things that they did, whether they didn't mean what they said, they were inconsistent, they hurt us and cut us deeply. And when it comes to trust issues, I'm going to say something that might be a little challenging, but I think it's worth the statement. Sometimes, a lot of the times that we mention this idea of trust issues, if we really think about what broke the trust or what we felt broke the trust, sometimes it's over some really small things. Like we think somebody betrayed our trust because they didn't get back to us on a timetable or time frame we expected them to. Um, we feel as if they weren't who we wanted them to be, who we expected them to be in certain spaces and moments. And so because of that, we now take that in as if our trust has been breached. And here's a challenge that I want to give to my brothers and sisters if you are in this space, especially being a Christian, because I don't think that it's healthy to walk around with trust issues. I think it's important not to, and I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm actually trying to actually lead you to a place where you're willing to get an understanding on why trust issues are such a struggle for you. Where did it come from? What wound is this speaking from? And now being able to understand that background, get the healing we need to now, not saying that we are now going to go from trust issues to no trust issues, but just understanding what it actually means to trust somebody, and being able to trust other people to be who they've shown us to be. Right. So I want to get to the place where I'm trusting other people to be who they've shown me to be. This helps me not put unrealistic expectations on somebody who is incapable of upholding them, because then I'm hurt, right? Not to necessarily avoid disappointment, but why would I willingly add on disappointment when this is someone who isn't capable of actually upholding such an expectation from me, specifically for this relationship? So sometimes we hold on to this trust issues as a badge of honor, so much so that we walk around singing Drake trust issues all the time. But I want you to just consider that maybe I am expecting somebody to be a certain way for me in order for me to feel comfortable to love them, welcome them, appreciate them, and walk with them. And if that is the case, I think we want to just reconsider what it actually means to trust people. And we want to reconsider that real, genuine love for somebody does not equate to them having to be a certain way for me to feel okay with then loving them, accepting them, and walking towards them, approaching them, doing life with them, building a relationship with them in any kind of capacity. Anytime I have to become dependent on somebody to be a certain way for me to love them, I am not actually walking in a formality of love. I'm walking in straight selfishness. Because the moment you no longer uphold what I thought or what I think you should do, who you should be, then the relationship falls to pieces. Instead of actually saying, you know what? I acknowledge who you are, I acknowledge where you are, and I can accept you as you are. And because I have an understanding of who you are, where you are, I can now also set reasonable expectations, so that way I can continuously expect you to be who you've shown me to be, and we grow together. That I think has a lot of power. Instead of saying, I want you to be this for me, I expect you to be this for me. And the moment you aren't this for me, then the love is now withdrawn, kindness withdrawn, compassion withdrawn. I no longer want to deal with that. And so then we walk around because of that with trust issues. Oh, I can't trust him. I can't trust him because he never does this for me. She never does that for me. She never treats me this way. She never treats me. Now, again, I'm not saying to stay in relationships that are just ill will and they treat you poorly. That's not my message at all. But sometimes we take small things that actually don't have to have such a great impact on the relationship or on us individually, and we blow it up and we make it a bigger deal than it has to be. So I would say to be mindful of what you label as trust issues, because it's possible it's not trust issues, it's selfishness issues. because you want that person to be a certain way in order for them to now receive the love you want to give them. So now the love you give isn't even legitimate because it's not based on who they are, it's based on what they do for you. And now it's shaky. So be mindful of that is all I would suggest to you, to be mindful what you label as trust issues. And in accordance to this video, I love what he said. In the moments where that trust is breached, it takes a while to build it and it takes one moment to break it. And you do have to work to build that trust back. Trust isn't easily given, it's earned. And those moments where reassurance is necessary, those moments where, those thoughts and remembrance of when that trust was breached, and you're slowly journeying back to what that relationship once was, or even better, you're going to be a part of the healing. And some of that stuff is going to be thrown your way. And if you're actually honestly willing to repair the relationship, then you accept that. You want to work through that in order to earn that person's trust once more. And you recognize through the breaking of that trust how valuable having their trust is, and why it's not worth it to throw it away for whatever it was thrown away for. And I am willing, as he mentioned in this blanket statement, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to repair this relationship and honor it the way that it ought to be. So with broken trust and trust issues, there's two sides, right? We want to be mindful of this. Be careful what you're labeling trust issues, because it's possible that what you're labeling trust issues as is actually selfishness issues, because it's not that this person broke your trust. It's just that you're greatly disappointed because this person wasn't who you wanted them to be. And it's possible we have to do some self-reflection. Did I put unrealistic expectations on this person? And furthermore, do I feel as if people have to be a certain way for me to love them? Because then that's not genuine love. That's selfishness. That's pride in the way. And then in legitimate places where your trust was broken from somebody in a relationship that you honored, you loved, you appreciated, you genuinely respected and enjoyed, it is a decision to be made on repairing the relationship. It's not mandatory. Please don't hear forgiveness conflated with reconciliation, because forgiveness is simply saying that I am no longer willing to allow this to hold on to me, right? Reconciliation is saying, okay, now we can actually look to repair that, but that doesn't mean that you have to. But upon the decision to repair this relationship, please keep in mind that you will be a part of the healing, and you must be willing to submit to that and be willing to do whatever it takes, barring obviously abusive behaviors and misuse behaviors and those kinds of things. You're going to have to be willing to show up and show out that you mean what you say, and wanting to gain that person's trust back and honoring that individual and getting to the place of honoring that relationship again. And don't do it out of the sake of feeling guilty for doing it. I think I would much rather you not be apologetic because you actually meant what you did, versus only being sorry because you got caught, not because it was something of greater struggle and greater issues. And this goes into so many conversations that I don't have time to dive into tonight, but I do think that there is room to get understanding behind people's behaviors. People don't just do things to do it. There's a reason, regardless if we agree with the reason, there is a reason behind why people do what they do that explains their behaviors. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but there can be room to get an understanding about it. And I think upon getting understanding from those things allows us to make room on whether or not this is something we want to repair, move forward in, recover, and do the work necessary in order to bring the relationship back to healthy standing. And I think that's something to always consider. So that's it. I've been on here for about an hour and a half. I wanted to get a couple reactions in. We spent so long talking about the first subject, so not even tripping. Listen, we will be back hopefully next week around the same time, 5 p.m. I actually failed to put out a community post about going live. I typically do that, and I didn't today, got caught up in other edits. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. I've got a video that I believe is up live right now, discussing a reaction video of why love is so scary. So definitely check that out. This is during the live stream. Of course, if you're watching the replay, go check out the video if you haven't. I'm sure I'll put it up here on the end screen somewhere. All right. So I appreciate you guys so much. And until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.